The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1 has finally released on Disney+, and I have had the chance to watch the full episode. There is a lot to break down and analyse, including certain scenes, Star Wars Easter eggs, the ending, and much more. I thought it would be a good idea to approach every episode in Season 2 and give you a deep dive into what we saw. In particular, I'm going to be explaining the plot and ending for The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1, entitled The Marshal, in the aim to help you guys gather a greater sense of what happened. This analysis will also contain spoilers, so if you do happen to be someone who hasn't seen the episode, then I would recommend watching this video after you've seen it. If you want to see more uploads on every episode of The Mandalorian Season 2, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoy this video, remember to give it a like rating. Without further ado, let's dive into my breakdown of The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1. So this season of The Mandalorian begins with Din Djarin searching for other Mandalorians, which ultimately leads him back to Tatooine. Although no one's seen a real Mandalorian on Tatooine other than Mando himself, there have been at least 2 people who've worn Mandalorian armour on the planet in the more recent times. One of these people happened to be Timothy Olyphant's Cobb Vanth. This is the first time that Cobb Vanth has appeared in any version of Star Wars on screen, and he was first introduced in the Aftermath novels as a kind of sheriff who wore Boba Fett's armour. According to Cobb Vanth in this first episode, he used the silicax crystals he stole from the local mining company and traded it with the Jawas for Boba Fett's Mandalorian armour. Granted, it's unclear how the Jawas got the armour in the first place, and this could become another example of Lucasfilm not explaining its plot holes, but Star Wars fans know that Boba Fett was last seen falling into a Sarlacc pit. What happened to him after that has been unknown until now. But to address the early plotline of this episode before we get onto the Boba Fett ending, episode 1 opens following the premise of the season, which is relatively straightforward. Din Djarin, or Mando, must track down the society of his young charge Baby Yoda and return him to them. To do that though, he must first track down some more of his own people who were mostly wiped out during the last season. In this episode, that search takes him back to Tatooine, which follows a fun battle scene on another distant world where he battles Return of the Jedi's pig-like Gamorrean guards, a Darth Maul-like Dathomirian, and plenty of other foes, where he's heard rumours of another Mandalorian working as the town marshal. However, all is not as it seems, because while the Mandalorian armour protecting the town might be legitimate, the man inside isn't actually one of Mando's people. Instead, it's inhabited by Timothy Olyphant, aka Cobb Vanth, who merely bought the armour from some Jawas and now uses it to protect the town. Our own helmeted hero demands the return of the armour while essentially insulting Vanth for co-opting his religion, but before they get into a fight, Vanth instead recruits Mando to help him kill a crate dragon that's been terrorising his village. What follows is a fun collection of action, western tropes, and Star Wars Easter eggs. If you watch closely, you'll see that Cobb's speeder bike is clearly taken from one of Episode 1's pod racers, and if the crate dragon itself seems familiar, it's because the creatures have turned up before in Star Wars animated series, as well as in 1977's original Star Wars movie, where its long skeleton formed part of the introduction to Tatooine. We also return to the Sand People, whose society got a bit of a revamp in the last season, and it turns out they're not quite as savage as we thought when Anakin went on a rampage in the prequels. They team up with Vanth, Mando, and the villagers, and with Mando revealing that he speaks Tusken, it ultimately helps them form this alliance to take down their common enemy together. The Sand People and the citizens don't see eye to eye due to skirmishes between the two, but with the extra push from Mando and Cobb Vanth reminding them that the Krayt Dragon can swallow their village one day, this gets them on board. Together they put a plan in motion to wake up the dragon, grab onto it with giant spikes to hold him in place, and then blow a series of charges that have been covertly buried in the sand. The plan to take down the Krayt Dragon itself is fairly simple, but of course, as with any on-screen plan, it doesn't go well. The Krayt Dragon senses it's being lured out and tries to slip back into its cave. This is where The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1 switches its aspect ratio, with the screen slowly expanding as the dragon emerges. You can visibly feel the sharper clarity and the increased depth of field thanks to IMAX cameras. This is something Christopher Nolan has pushed forward in his films, which I've covered a lot on the channel, and although The Mandalorian is being seen on a TV screen, it still adds a scope to the production that makes all the action much more visceral. But as this action continues, the joint forces pelt the beast with blasters and explosives to enrage it. This works, but it also works against them, after the Krayt Dragon reveals a previously unseen capability, and this turns out to be an acid bile that it spouts. To add to their misery, the first series of explosives barely make a dent in the beast's thick skin. Now even angrier, the Krayt Dragon turns the tables on its much smaller opponents, as it burrows underground and emerges from unexpected places. First, the top of a nearby mountain, and then from the sand dunes behind the attacking front. Mando has to plan on the spot with the remaining explosives that are tied to a bantha as Cobb Vanth gets the dragon's attention. As it approaches the duo, Mando pushes Vanth out of the way and is swallowed whole by the dragon. This is when a quiet falls on the battlefield for about half a minute, until the Krayt Dragon emerges once again from the underground and a flying Mando also appears, having electrified and shocked the inside of the beast's mouth with his weapons to open it. Mando then hits the trigger and the bantha with the explosives, now deep in the dragon's belly, ripping it apart. It's yet another showcase for not just Mando's capabilities, but more importantly, his willingness to go the extra mile and potentially sacrifice himself in the process. By the end, the deal is completed. Djarin has the armor back, Vanth's people are safe, and the Sand people gained some trust amongst others. But as Djarin and Baby Yoda speed off to look for Mandalorians elsewhere, another figure is looking on. This is where we come to the final shot of this premiere episode. Now, as we learned at the beginning, with Cobb Vanth wearing Boba Fett's Mandalorian armour, it could have been seen as Boba Fett being officially dead. How else could the Jawas get the armour if the person wearing it wasn't killed? However, this episode ends with Boba Fett appearing in the flesh, unmasked for the first time since the Star Wars prequels. Temuera Morrison, who appeared as Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, appears here once again, but as Boba Fett. Remember, Boba Fett was a non-modified clone of Jango, who wanted a son. The show previously teased Boba Fett's return in Season 1, Episode 5, when someone wearing spurs, the classic sound associated with Boba Fett, approached Fennec Shan's body. It was never confirmed who that figure was, but everyone assumed it was Boba Fett. Given that we've now seen him on screen and on Tatooine, The Mandalorian Season 2 supports this theory, though it may not be fully addressed right away. Mando came back to Tatooine only to find another Mandalorian, and instead he found Cobb Vanth. He accomplished what he set out to do on this planet, so he may be leaving. However, considering the series of events in Season 1, it's likely that Mando will at some point return to Tatooine, and in doing so, come into contact with Boba Fett. The biggest thing here is that Boba Fett is confirmed to be alive in Star Wars canon, despite the greater multitude of expanded universe stories, and this is the first time it's been addressed in the official continuity in decades. The Mandalorian Season 2 doesn't appear to have any significant time jump yet, so it still takes place 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, and it's also interesting to see Fett currently occupying Tatooine. Why Boba Fett remained on Tatooine for this long remains to be seen, but judging by his clothing, he seems to have become a hermit living out on the planet similar to the Tusken Raiders. And not to mention, he even has the same weaponry as the Tuskens. What's even more intriguing is that although Boba Fett technically isn't a Mandalorian, he still knows members of the Jedi. He knew Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and he was alive to see the battle from Attack of the Clones. He's arguably one of the most ideal characters in this era to inform Mando about the Jedi and who Baby Yoda might actually be. As a bounty hunter, he may not be willing to give up that information so easily, but this information will definitely catch the attention of many Star Wars fans. We'll have to see how all of this ties into the main plotline of Season 2 and what the show creators will eventually do with his character. But that was my video explaining the plot and ending for The Mandalorian Season 2 Episode 1. I thought this opening episode was a really exciting return to the series, and although I would have liked to have seen an ending with more long-term threat development, the final shot of the episode does get me interested in what the creators will do as we move into the next few weeks. One of my main criticisms of Season 1, even though I really enjoyed it, was how some episodes lacked the establishment of a longer term threat, until of course that finale in Season 1 with the growth of Moff Gideon and the Darksaber scene. We are yet to see this in Season 2, but I'm sure as the episodes pass we will get a connection and more growth towards his character. But as a standalone piece of Star Wars entertainment, it does do its job and introduces a great character in Timothy Olyphant's Cobb Vanth. I also especially liked how the final scene opened up the letterbox to really show the scale of the creature they were fighting, and it really put forward an immersive action scene that again creates excitement for what they will do with the action later on in Season 2. Even though there wasn't much Baby Yoda, I think his character served the humour and also terror portrayed towards the creature they were fighting, but hopefully in the next few episodes, he will also have more scenes to shine. Overall, I'm giving this first episode of The Mandalorian Season 2 an 8 out of 10. But I hope my breakdown helped some of you guys understand the events a bit clearer, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens on next week's episode to further the story of this season, alongside what they plan to do with Boba Fett later on down the line. I'm also intrigued to hear all of your thoughts on Episode 1, so let me know down below in the comment section, as well as listing your predictions for Episode 2. For more videos on The Mandalorian Season 2 over the next few months, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating. I will be doing an explained video for every episode this season, alongside bringing much more content on the new Star Wars show, so make sure to keep a lookout for whenever I post these uploads. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.